If you were a gamer growing up in the 90s and the early 2000s, then you are probably familiar with one of Star Wars' greatest gaming accomplishments. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic was an RPG released by BioWare, I can't remember if it was early 2000s, something like that, and it was an absolute instant classic, introducing some characters to the Star Wars universe that are now deeply and dearly beloved. Your Bastila Shans, your Malaks, and of course, your Revan. Both Darth and Jedi Knight Revan. So I was absolutely stoked when the teaser trailer dropped for Star Wars Fate of the Old Republic. Kerry Hudson, the director of the original Knights of the Old Republic, is making his spiritual successor to KOTOR with Fates of the Old Republic. He founded a brand new game development company called Arcanaut Studios in July of this year, and with the Game Awards just yesterday, released his first teaser trailer for Fate of the Old Republic. Casey did take to Twitter to say, "This is Star Wars Fate of the Old Republic, a single-player narrative-driven action RPG and spiritual successor to Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Working on KOTOR was a defining experience for my career. This is a dream come true for me and our team of incredible storytellers and game makers at Arcanaut Studios." Casey Hudson, of course, did work on the original Knights of the Old Republic, but he also worked on the highly acclaimed Mass Effect trilogy as well, which gives me great hope for the success of this game in the future. If you are a Star Wars fan and you've been following the release of games recently, you will know that many of them either get caught up in purgatory, never released, or just cancelled on the spot. So it is really good and positive whenever we get new game announcements for this franchise. Fates of the Old Republic is described as a narrative-driven single-player action RPG where you step into the role of a Force user on a journey through the galaxy on the edge of rebirth. The spiritual successor to Knights of the Old Republic apparently blends innovative storytelling, memorable characters, and heart-pounding combat, immersing players in an unforgettable experience where every decision deepens the journey towards light or darkness. This really does sort of play into the gameplay mechanics that we usually see in games like KOTOR and games that came after it, such as the Mass Effect games. Very much decision-driven, narrative-based games where you get to choose the path of your character and how they progress and interact with other people. I'm just hoping that a lot of these decisions that we are faced with have actual consequences in the real game world. Of course, we're giving the opportunity here, by the sounds of things, to either follow a light side path or a dark side path. Casey goes on to say, "With Star Wars Fate of the Old Republic, we are telling a completely new and different story with everything that we have learned since, crafting an adventure about choice, destiny, and the timeless struggle between light and dark. It's a dream come true to once again collaborate with Lucasfilm Games." Jay Ong, the head of Disney Games Group, says, "Under Casey's direction, Arcanaut Studios is assembling a team with a deep passion for storytelling and building immersive worlds. Their vision of Star Wars Fate of the Old Republic is exactly the kind of ambitious, high-quality experience we want to deliver for our players. The Old Republic era is a rich and beloved part of the Star Wars galaxy, and we are thrilled to be exploring a fresh story that we have never seen before in Star Wars Fate of the Old Republic," says Douglas Riley, VP and GM of Lucasfilm Games. Arcanaut Studios shares our enthusiasm for the galaxy far, far away, and their plan for this new narrative is inspiring. We believe fans will be delighted by the journey that awaits them, and we can't wait to share more. It is, of course, still in early development for both PC and consoles, seen as though the company was only formed 6 months ago or so. I can't imagine we're going to see it in 2026 or probably 2027, but a man can dream. In an interview, Casey said, "When we developed the original KOTOR, we wanted to create a definitive Star Wars experience, crafting an adventure that consisted of all the things we have dreamed of doing as Star Wars fans. Now, 25 years after we started work on that game, our aspirations are equally as ambitious. Fate of the Old Republic represents an opportunity to explore a contemporary vision of a definitive Star Wars experience using state-of-the-art technology and game design, and an all-new story crafted specifically to deliver on the combination of player agency and immersion in Star Wars that was at the heart of KOTOR." Douglas Riley, who is Vice President of Lucasfilm Games, says that although this is not a direct sequel to Knights of the Old Republic, it is being built by people who have helped shape the legacy of Knights of the Old Republic. He goes on to say that throughout his 2 decades of working on Star Wars games, including Star Wars The Old Republic, the MMO, I have been fortunate enough to see firsthand just how much these stories mean to our fans. For us, this new project is about honouring that legacy by creating something in the same tradition of a deep cinematic, choice-driven role-playing game. Reuniting with Casey has been a tremendous honour, and we are pouring all of our shared passion and experience into building the next great chapter. When talking about his company, Archanaut Studios, he goes on to state that their goal is developing the kind of games that he loves to make. Emotionally powerful, cinematic adventures driven by player agency, narrative depth, and immersive world building. There have been conversations between his team and Lucasfilm Games that led to an incredible opportunity to return to Star Wars, and once again, we can hardly believe we are working on such a special project. One of the great benefits, of course, being set in the Old Republic era is that they have a lot more creative freedom around what they get to do. I'm sure that Disney is very, very protective of the Star Wars lore as a whole. If we know anything about them, they are very prescriptive with what can and cannot happen. Certainly going into the future is probably outside of the scope of possibilities because Disney wants to have that own creative freedom to tell where the story goes. So going back in time lets them tell all sorts of stories that they have a lot more creative control over. As an old school RPG nerd, this is my utter jam. I cannot wait to dive into this game. I prefer a turn-based RPG, but I will absolutely take an action RPG set in the Star Wars universe. 100% a return with some great game directors like this. I am so excited. But I want to know your thoughts. What are your feelings about Fate of the Old Republic? Are you looking forward to it? And can it come soon enough? Of course, that wasn't the only game that was announced during the Game Awards. We also had Star Wars Galactic Racer. Now, I'm personally not really a massive fan of racing games in general, but as I said earlier, I will clutch at any single Star Wars release when it comes to new games, because why not? We've had precious little when it comes to Star Wars games that are of high production value and heart. Galactic Racers does look like it is going to be an interesting take on the genre. It looks like we're getting a mixture of not just pod racers, but land speeders and swoop bikes and all sorts. Looks like there is also an element of destruction in this. I haven't done too much research into this game simply because it's not a massive cup of tea of mine, but I will definitely be giving this a go when it drops. I'm just hoping it doesn't take the same route that we had with Star Wars Squadrons, where it was simply unsupported a day after the release. Star Wars Galactic Racer is apparently a runs-based high-stakes reinvention of racing born in the lawless outer rim of the Star Wars galaxy. It is coming out in 2026 for PlayStation 5, Xbox, as well as PC. It appears to be set after the fall of the Empire and the galaxy is still rebuilding. The Galactic League is formed, an underground, unsanctioned circuit where syndicates bankroll chaos and champions are forged. There's no force, no prophecy, just skill and strategy and the will to rise. Star Wars Galactic Racer is being made by Fuse Games. Fuse Games was only set up a couple of years ago, and its team consists of former Criterion leaders. Criterion, of course, are known for their expertise in the Need for Speed games, so they do have a lot of experience in the racing genre. So let me know what you think, ladies and gentlemen, about these new releases. Are you excited? Are you going to be playing them? And is there hope yet for the future of Star Wars gaming? I certainly hope so. Make sure you hit the like button before you go, and I will see you all in the very next video. Peace out, and may the Force be with you.